Back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. If you are looking for the perfect getaway, maybe you want to get together with friends and watch the Sweet 16 games next week, and that's now an option. Visit ParksideCabinRentals.com and see if they've got a cabin for your needs. Boy, they've got all kinds of cabins, but you better book quickly. And book for summer, folks. They are filling up fast. Best cabins in the Smokies, and my goodness, the number of choices they provide you. And you see the layouts, the floor plans right there on the website, ParksideCabinRentals.com. All right, take a look here. You saw this during the game, but I've updated the numbers. Rick Barnes, I updated Rick Barnes' number. I didn't have to update Bruce Pearl's number. I really hate that for Auburn. Sweet 16. It's the one school in the league that I just detest.
Vanderbilt.
Lon Kruger, they're just boring. 4 schools, but only 5 Sweet 16s, which is really kind of bizarre. John Calipari, Bill Self, Rick Pitino, Eddie Sutton, Tubby Smith, Rick Barnes, Bruce Pearl, Bruce Weber. Those are the only guys ever to take 3 different schools to the Sweet 16. For the people like me, I said this earlier, for the people like me who had cried about, the way this team had looked this year and Rick Barnes trying to win with defense, that was a perfect opportunity for him to stick it back in everybody's faces. And for all the people who go on and on like idiots about rocking chair Rick and retirement home Rick, that's a great one for him to smack back in people's faces. He won't do that, of course. But let me ask you, what does it mean for Rick Barnes? You guys, I'll start over here because you guys have already said, if you lose the next round, it's still going to be hot. They'll point out that he hasn't won a second weekend game since 2008. So do you feel yesterday's game was a step forward, or now you better win your next one?
Well, it's a definite step forward. But the way I view it, the more you win, the more it hurts to lose. So if you're in position to play a 9 or a 15 seed to get to the Elite Eight and you don't, I think that then an appreciable majority of fans will come back and be frustrated and say you had the road was clear and you didn't get there. So I think there'll be a number of them that'll be disappointed with that. And we all know the immediate reaction of fans, right?
Yes,
so we
absolutely.
get that. Anyway, that's what
hot,
I think.
Quick.
And I thought Coach Barnes had a really great quote in the locker room after the game when everybody's so happy. He said, "Everybody gave us up for dead. We're still very much alive." And you could tell from the sound of that. Name me a bigger win by Rick Barnes than to beat Duke and to advance in the NCAA tournament.
This wasn't December.
Exactly. This isn't one of those even earlier season games, John. So
Tennessee, you mean?
Yeah, I can't think of a bigger one he's had at Tennessee.
And also you look, it's funny. They're now, and we said this last week about the players. Do they know, does it creep into their mind what his tournament record is? Because they said it last year. They know. They talked about how they wanted to win for him last year. They came out and it's unbelievable the heat he takes. The people are coming out. He's talking about people like us. They're talking about fans who want him on the message boards, on your message board and stuff. But they've got their dander up that he's great and it's ridiculous to point any of these things out. The problem is there's 2 sides to the coin.
Yes.
There's nothing. He was 2-14 against the spread in NCAA tournament games, the last 16 games going into yesterday. That's not negative. That's just a fact. So when people have doubts, there's reason to have doubts. At the same time, I think it's great that the players want to play for him and fight for him and use that disrespect thing as if it's unfair. I think it's cool that they use it and love the guy, because I sometimes listen to him in press conferences and wonder if they would. But clearly they love him, because that was their big talking point after that game yesterday was this was Rick Barnes.
Absolutely. And I do think this win gets the monkey off the back partially. I think if you would have heard some pretty loud...
still got a claw.
Yeah. One claw. You stiuld would have heard some pretty loud cries if they had lost this game.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of pressure going into next season to do something more. I mean, there wouldn't have been like talk of let's fire him, but there would have been started some grumbling. Yeah. So this is a big deal because it puts that on hold for now. It at least puts it on the back burner for the foreseeable future. But to Jimmy's point, I do think a loss in this game is just going to remind people of his shortcomings in the second weekend, in this next game coming up if you don't win. So you need to get to the Elite Eight, I think, to get people fully on board with saying this really does something for him.
And, Bob, I thought, this has to be quick. I apologize. But that's one of Rick Barnes' best coaching jobs. I mean, he mixed in some zone there. He knew exactly what Duke was going to do. He had an answer for everything. And, again, all signs pointed to an early exit. You and I both thought so. For him to turn it around. After that tournament loss, you seeing how you look without Zakai Ziegler, to get them to the Sweet 16, that's his best coaching. I agree with Chuck. The best coaching job he's done at Tennessee, and that's saying something.
He took, and I mentioned it to you yesterday while we was talking, Tennessee looked like a thicker, heavier, stronger team. And he put that out there, and I thought maximized that. And that was good. Instead of saying, okay, I've got to change something up. Okay, this is what we do. Let's take it to the max. Take them in the mud.
Yeah.
The max mud.
The max
as
mud.
it was.
And you've got your own players. He's found the right buttons to push.
Yeah.
And they're repeating these things about the
Well,
mud.
but here's
And
another thing.
that's good.
You touched on it. He's pushing more buttons, too. He's mixing it up a little. How long have we sat here and say, please,
Give us some zone.
give us some zone, even if this makes
Yeah.
it a tougher scout?
Tell you what, speaking of tougher scouts, let's do some scouting next. When we come back, we're going to break down Tennessee's next 2 possible foes like you've never seen before. Shot charts and everything. We'll show you where FAU and FDU have their strengths, their weaknesses, and we'll hopefully convince you FAU is a real basketball team. The name might not match it. They're as good as anybody in the tournament, okay? They're legit. We'll show you the national rankings to back that up. Come on back.